Hello, I'm Matt Williamson. Let's dig into the mailbag this week. You guys' questions are really good. I got to be honest with you. I'm impressed. Knowledgeable fans. I also pick the good ones, of course, but you know, that's how that works. Let's just dig right in. We got Ravens week. Matty Mac asks, Matt, what's with the tosses and what's with Patterson getting RB snaps? Guy literally is terrible and is so predictable. I picked this for a pretty simple reason in that the toss stuff is terrible. I mean, Najee on a toss is not going to get it done. That is not what we're after here at all. He's a bad fit for such a play. I think this is Arthur Smith being rather stubborn with his system, you know, and frankly, if it would be Warren, I'd understand it. Harris, I don't. But that aside, I didn't know this until well after the game, that the only reason Patterson was in there for that short stretch were the other two guys were being evaluated. I don't think they even said it in the broadcast, but Warren took a shot to the hip and was being evaluated, you know, so he was not available, and Najee had taken a big shot too and was being evaluated, so they had to put in the third string running back. So it's really that simple. I didn't know that. I have a feeling you didn't know that. And how would you? I mean, I don't think anybody ever mentioned it. Brian Ravak asks, who's more to blame? Khan for not getting a legitimate wide receiver 2 or Tomlin for not utilizing Mike Williams? I also took this for ulterior motives here. I think pretty strongly Mike Williams stuff is about to spike a lot. Now, maybe there's only one game, but I think he'll be used noticeably more in Baltimore. And he made some plays in this game. He was a bright spot. I think his size is something that they are enamored with, and rightfully so, and all that good stuff. So I do think there'll be more there. And I do think it's harder for most of you guys maybe to realize how difficult it is for a wide receiver to fit in. You know, like look at Amari Cooper and DeAndre Hopkins, bigger name guys, but they haven't really adjusted to their new teams all that well, or their new quarterbacks. It's just not as much practice time as you think. Now, that's not excusing things. I'm a little shocked that Williams hasn't gotten more action either. But I'm not trying to break news here, but I will tell you, spending as much time as I did in training camp and as much time around this team, especially in training camp, there were, and it seems like ages ago and many degrees warmer in Latrobe, many more near deals at wide receiver than maybe we even realize. I'll just leave it at that. That I think that there were way more talks. I think there were more bad coincidences. Like, I'll just make this as one. Like, they had a deal in place for Christian Kirk, and then Kirk that game gets hurt and is out for the year. You know, so like, if Omar could sit here and tell you all the facts, and I don't know the facts of why this deal didn't happen or why Ayuk didn't happen or blah blah blah, I found out that there's more bad luck and more weird circumstances to that than maybe originally thought. Settling for Mike Williams isn't great. Don't get me wrong. I do think they'll be aggressive in the wide receiver market this offseason. But I also have found out that some of the deals just had weird coincidences around them. Justin Grove asks, hey, can you grow a better mustache than Arthur Smith? I wouldn't know, but I don't think so, because I think the longest I've ever gone in my life without shaving my face top to bottom is like 24 hours. So I'm kind of a nerd about that. Just shave every day. So I have no clue what it would look like, but I bet it wouldn't be good. So there's that. Pretty important stuff, I know. I mean, in this critical time of the season, these are things we need to know. BetOnline is your world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA to college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA, Head to BetOnline today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, we are back. Kelly Domination. The Steelers always go 3 and out on their first drive. Why can't they get at least a few first downs just to change field position? Well, this is kind of a magic question. I mean, I think we'd all love to know the answer to that. And Kelly Domination, I'm not giving you a hard time, but it's also not entirely true. They have gone 19 straight opening drives without a touchdown. But I do think there's 6 or 7, not that that's wonderful, of those drives did yield a field goal. So it's not always 3 and out. But your point is still very strong, and it is not a good reflection of their prep. And by that, people think like they just sat around and ate hoagies and drank beer all week. No, I think that this staff on both sides of the ball is not great or has not proven to be great at having a strong understanding of how the opponent is going to attack you. That doesn't mean the players came out flat. I think a lot of it's X's and O's type of things. And frankly, in this past game, I think the Steelers decided after this 3-game losing streak, we need to get down to basics. We need to run the football, and all these body blows that we used to land early in the game will pay off in the fourth quarter against a bad Bengals defense. And even though they threw so well against the Bengals the first time around, a lot of short throws, we're going to change it up, get back to what we do, establish a run game as we enter the postseason. And they'll be the first to tell you, and I'll be this next one to tell you, it didn't work. It sure didn't. That strategy was very poor, and there's some Monday morning quarterbacking to that. I understand their logic behind doing it. I was a little shocked that they didn't throw way more, especially on first downs, in that game, but I understand why, but frankly, it flat out didn't work. Now, this isn't at all brushing away that the early parts of games has been poor for this team. And if they start out slow in Baltimore, they're doomed. That's the worst team in the league to start out slow. DSR asks, Matt, what are the main issues you see with the O-line play in the last few games? Seems they have regressed on pass protection specifically. Dan Moore sure has. I mean, Dan Moore has fallen back to earth in a big way over this last month, and Hendrickson ate him alive. And Hendrickson's a really, really good player. But his play has dropped. The rest of the protection stuff, I'm not saying is wonderful or, boy, they have no issues or this is a star-studded offensive line at this stage of their development. But I think more of it is on Wilson. I mean, you're seeing a lot of late rotations with the safeties and changing coverage at the snap. And he's not handling that well. I think he's double clutching a lot and not sure what he's seeing initially, which then throws the timing and rhythm of the play off. Watching the All-22, there was a lot of routes he could have thrown that didn't. He isn't playing on time, and I don't think that as the down goes on, I think he gets worse and worse and worse, and therefore it makes the protection worse. So I don't know that the protection's changed all that much besides more. And frankly, it hasn't been great all year. Like if you look at the pressure rate allowed by the Steelers for the year, it's like 8th from the bottom. It's not great. SIK asks, if the Steelers miraculously win against the Ravens, does that absolve the staff of what happened the last few weeks of the regular season? I think the answer is yes, right? I mean, it's not great. And I'm sure if they go on a late losing streak next year, we'll be citing, boy, Tomlin's teams have really dropped off after Thanksgiving yet again. If you go win a game where you're a 9-point dog in Baltimore and end their season, I think that absolutely absolves the organization, maybe not the staff in terms of coaching staff. specifically. And I think that's a successful year. We'd take that, right? I mean, if I told you the last day at Latrobe training camp that the Steelers were going to win double-digit games and win a playoff game in Wild Card Weekend in Baltimore, is that a successful year, yes or no? I think most of us would check the yes box, right? I mean, no question. Matthias, do you think the Steelers will continue to blitz Queen like they did against the Bengals? He is awesome at rushing against interior line. Wish we didn't wait all year to start doing it. Yeah, I'd like to see more blitzing in general. This is probably more of an off-season next year thing with better corners. But I also think this has been an underused aspect of Queen. He's one of the better blitzer pass rushers from the off-the-ball linebacker spot over the last 3 or 4 years since he's entered the league. And they've underutilized it. They've underutilized the blitz capabilities of Roberts as well. Peyton Wilson was really good at it at NC State, and we haven't seen a lot of that either. Now, I know why they're doing it, and we've talked about this to no end, that if you get home with a four-man rush and influence games without it and drop 7, that's great. And that's whatever your defensive coordinator longs to do. But I still think more disruption, more Blitzburg, more big plays, more hitting of quarterbacks is needed, and you have guys that can do it. So I don't know how much they'll do it against the Ravens. The Ravens are the most blitz team in the league. That might shock you. You know, Lamar's the most blitz quarterback. Will the Steelers take that approach or not with a former Raven? I hope we see a fair amount of it. I mean, I'm leaning that way too, as Matthias. I think that's smart. Last one I got for you is from the PEF. Do you believe the Steelers are stuck in, quote, football hell? Not good enough to succeed in the playoffs, but not bad enough to pick in the top 10. Perhaps. I don't think they're quite to the level of some of the teams we've seen in that world where it's always 7, 8 wins, you know, that there's no hope. I really don't think that in the next year or two, this is a pick at the top of the draft type of team, especially with Tomlin's the head coach, and you still have the Haywards and the culture and all that. Who knows who the quarterback will be specifically, but I don't see them being in that neighborhood to land the next Joe Burrow, you know, the next Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, you know, probably not. I think that's safe to say. But I also think it's going to be really hard to compete with Allen, Mahomes, Lamar, Burrow, maybe Herbert in these upcoming years too, because all those teams have really good coaches as well, or majority of them do. And that's a tough combination. So I think that's a little harsh, you know, to say, call it football hell or football purgatory, you know, so to speak. But I see where you're coming from, and it is a little frustrating. Yeah. And I can't candy coat it. I mean, if every year is you just sneak into the playoffs and maybe you win 1 out of 4 or 5 wild card weeks year after year, and Cam Hayward and TJ Watt get 1 year older without a playoff win or a Super Bowl trophy, yeah, it's frustrating, but that's also what the league is about. I mean, again, the bar here is so high. Man, this team's no good unless they're winning 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. You know, that's a little unrealistic too. But I do see where you're coming from, and I don't think it's crazy talk at all. You know, I definitely understand the frustration. All right, everyone. Thanks again. Over and out.